I have Dan and Sam from Palmyra, and they're here to talk about this new platform. And I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about it because I don't know much about how this all works. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, for those that don't know who you guys are, could we get a quick little introduction in regards to how you're involved in the Cardano ecosystem, and then we'll go into the actual product itself. So, Sam, can we start off with you first?
Sure. So, hi, my name's Sam. I'm a co-founder of Zengate Global. Started the company with Dan early last year. My background's in the management consulting space, so I worked at a company called Oliver Wyman for a number of years, and then helped set up their digital assets practice out of New York globally as well. I actually came into Cardano as a community advisor for Catalyst. That was the first thing I ever did in terms of getting involved, and I think I've been doing it since Fund 5 or Fund 4, something like that. Really passionate about Catalyst and about decentralized governance and the role of capital to actually help build projects. So that's how I got involved, and I've been helping a lot in that capacity, but also helping the Ergo Foundation as well in any way I can. So really into both ecosystems.
And Dan, I think many people know you in the Cardano ecosystem, and we're lucky enough to meet at Rare Bloom or Rare Evo, whatever it's called now, last year.
It's Rare Evo now. It's just, yeah. Rare something.
Something rare. Can we get a little introduction from yourself as to how you're involved in the ecosystem for those that don't know?
Sure. So for those of you who don't know me, shame on you. I'm just kidding. My name is Dan Friedman. I am the founder of Zengate, or the co-founder of Zengate with Sam. Before Zengate, I helped launch this little blockchain called Cardano, being part of the OG team at Input Output. Was with Input Output for 7 years, up until actually recently when I went full-time Zengate. So this is my full-time gig. Before that, had about 20 years of project management and development experience. So I was a developer for a long time, ever since the 90s. This is how I came into the business. I was a Java developer, and then it got expanded into other fields. And just the community. It's it's just this beautiful place that I feel really honored to have been one of the people who kind of gave it birth. By giving it birth meant, when nobody knew about Cardano, going around and telling like the three people that would always FUD us and say that we're never going to launch and like it's all a scam. Just like, no, you're full of crap. Yes, we are going to launch. Mainnet is coming, because this is like a year and a half, 2 years before Mainnet, back in early 2016. Kind of building this ecosystem really from the beginning, from the early when the ecosystem was still pretty much all Japanese. In fact, one of the reasons why I got hired by Input Output in the first place was because we were doing the pre-sale in Japan and we were launching in Japan. And actually we had a team in Japan, but I was the only one that actually spoke Japanese. So they needed somebody to be able to communicate with our KYC partner, which were also kind of our quote unquote customers, in a sense that the pre-sale app, which handled the entire pre-sale, everything from voucher and ADA redemption to KYC and all these different things all in the middle. It was just this huge application that handled everything. Needed to be built as we went, right? And so this was a project that I was managing. I was managing the actual pre-sale app, and my team was building it. And so I had to meet with our Japanese partners every week, twice a week, in form of product and project manager, and get specs, and then go and scrape the internet for mentions of anything that has to do with Cardano. And there were like 3 mentions on the entire internet of Cardano, and like 2 of them were from like some random people that hate Charles and were like, it's a scam. It's a scam. He's going to disappear. They're never going to launch this thing. This thing is never going to happen. So had to, go to local meetups, and there were a couple of people in Japan that were really vocal against us. And at that point, it was really crucial to make sure that the correct information went out there, because it's really easy to FUD in this industry. I'm a huge fan of, I guess, if information with integrity. I welcome free information, but I'm a fan of information with integrity, and this is why you have to be out there, and you have to make sure that the right information is out there, because if it's not, the other side will get the narrative, they will hijack the narrative, and then even if it is, if what you are saying is right, it'll take time for effort to trickle down. So it's just very important to make sure that you are really on top of these things. Yeah, so I mean that's I guess that's who I am. That's what I've been. Now it's all about Zengate. Now it's all about Palmyra, and this is really, working at IOG for so long kind of gave me these fundamentals of where to build business from. The same fundamentals that are actually part of Cardano. Opportunity inclusion. Leapfrogging with technology, transparency through technology, immutability through technology, through blockchain, and this is what Palmyra is all about. This is basically as Charles calls Ergo, the spiritual successor to Bitcoin. Palmyra is the spiritual successor to my work with Cardano. This is what was born from my work at Cardano and my work at Ergo. And so with the help of Sam, or with partnering with Sam, really kind of helped bring it to life, make it real. Sam is, he has a really, really difficult job of translating English to English, like English that's inside my head, and it's like mixed with Russian and Japanese, into actually stuff that other people can understand. So that's this really difficult job, and he does it really well.
All right, it's quite an impressive background, and it's really really cool that you managed to or go through all those processes of living through launching Cardano. It's would have been quite an experience, and would have been envious to watch all that come into play back in 2016, 2017 when it all happened. So it's quite an amazing journey that you've had. But now, congratulations on moving on to Zengate and launching this brand new product, Palmyra. Now, I'm looking into this, and I know a little bit about it, and the buzzwords around it is like a tokenized commodity exchange. Can we get an explanation as to what on earth that actually is?
Sure. I'll kind of give you the 15-second pitch, and then kind of Sam can break it down a little more, because he's a lot more articulate. He doesn't cuss as much. He's got a really nice, like, educated accent. I grew up, after Ukraine, I moved to the East Coast, so I kind of sound like, Sylvester Stallone from Rocky most of the time.
Yeah, you do, actually.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about Palmyra. You got to say Palmyra. Yeah. So Palmyra, it's not just an exchange. It's a tokenized commodity platform that leverages blockchain, and it is it's aimed for serving underserved commodities in emerging economies. Again, these are narratives that come from my work at IOG and my work with Cardano, which is what we do with Cardano. Cardano is really big on opportunity inclusion, on serving the underserved, bringing these things to places where these things weren't possible before. So this is what Palmyra is about. And so I'll let Sam to kind of give you a better breakdown of the the details of what we're really about.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And I think to actually get the full picture, Palmyra is an ecosystem that we're building out. And in terms of why we actually came to this idea and came to the product that we're launching and the ecosystem that we're launching, it's really useful to understand what the problem really is. And Dan spent a lot of time in emerging markets through his work at IOG. I also had the luxury of being able to spend some time working in the APAC region. And one of the last things I did was help work on a neobanking project out in the Philippines, where a lot of Filipinos have issues in terms of access to identity and access to credit. So all of this sort of came together, and basically what we noticed is there's a lot of businesses that are part of the commodity markets that are really struggling to keep up with the technology and the modernization and the digitization of commodity trading all around the world. And the digital transformation process has disproportionately affected many of these businesses, which are found in emerging markets, and leaving them out of the global value chain. So effectively, what we came to is that there were all these businesses, tens of thousands of businesses and billions of dollars of trade that are being conducted inefficiently and looking for ways to leapfrog ahead. And we noticed three key themes. The first was these businesses really wanted greater international market access, so directly connecting B2B from one country to another to be able to do cross-border trade. The second was they wanted tools to leapfrog, whether that's ways to capture traceability around provenance, if there's sustainability or governance data that you also want to capture. Lots and lots of regulators are now starting to actually require this from a compliance perspective, and they just didn't have tools to be able to do this. So without actually adopting this, they'd be left out. And the last bit was really, really crucial, is access to finance. Trade finance is a really, really important pillar of the commodity trade and the commodity markets business. And you can conduct trade, but financing is a really important piece, which actually smooths things out and opens up opportunities as well. So all of these three things sort of came together, and what we're trying to solve is all of them in what we call the Palmyra ecosystem, which is going to be a one-stop shop for commodity trading all around the world, whether that's spot business-to-business transactions, or in the future, potentially onboarding of different types of financial instruments as well, which means business can start to risk hedge and protect against certain risks that they could be facing, whether that's price volatility or whatnot. So it's really exciting. It's a huge market that we're tapping into, and we can't wait to onboard tens of thousands of businesses onto Cardano, utilizing Cardano technology, utilizing Ergo technology, and sort of collaborating with other ecosystems as well.
Okay, now you mentioned these businesses trading various commodities. Can you give us some examples of what they're trading and how they're actually trading things now? Like how they're opening and tapping into the international markets?
So let's, for example, take the pilot commodity, if you want to call it, on Palmyra, which is Sri Lankan Ceylon tea. So there are, of course, legacy commodity markets that people know about, which trade things like gold, like silver, like grains, coal, these different commodities that are highly fungible and that are essentially just standardized, right? So this is the purity of gold that we're trading, right? This is it, LBMA standard. That's what we're trading. This is the purity of silver that we're trading, right? This is the kind of coal that we're trading. This is the kind of iron ore that we're trading, right? So there isn't really too much non-fungibility in these lots because they're all the same. And this is how you can then standardize it, you can then categorize it, and then you can basically trade it in fractions, right? Now, there are other commodities in the world that are not traded on traditional commodity exchanges for the reason that it is not exactly completely highly fungible. Like, for example, tea. There are different varieties of tea, so you can't just trade tea. You have to trade different types of tea because there's different markets of tea. But while you do have different types, you still have huge enough lots that you can still standardize it and you can still kind of serialize it. And so to do so requires technology. And this is one of the things that Palmyra provides, is the technology to be able to tokenize and standardize these commodities in a way that wasn't possible before. Now, let's dig into the process of the actual commodity trading, right? So what happens, say, when tea is traded? And actually, most Sri Lankan tea, something like, what is it, Sam? Like 85% to 90% is actually being sold through a centralized entity, the Sri Lankan tea auction. And so there are various different entities in the middle. There are traders, there are brokers, there are buyers, there are factories that buy from the farmer. There are obviously farmers that grow the tea. The tea's all sometimes grown at the factory, and so all this aggregates into a fairly standardized system for buying and selling tea through the Sri Lankan auction and also direct sales. Now, while that is a system in place, this system is, fairly antiquated. In fact, the Sri Lankan, the Sri Lankan tea industry employs over 2 million people in Sri Lanka and is a multi-billion-dollar industry, just tea alone. And they have several other commodities, for example, like coconut products, cinnamon, rubber, that are really big in Sri Lanka as well, which are actually something that we're also going to onboard later on. Now, up until about, I think, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, the entire auction was done on paper. The entire thing.
Wow. Okay.
And so actually, it was the COVID pandemic that kind of forced some minimal technological insertion into this particular process, just because they couldn't be there to write all these papers and do this auction in person. So they did digitize, but very minimally. It's still very much a who you send a paper to, who writes what in a spreadsheet or in a giant book in a factory type of industry. And so while it does work in a way, there's obviously a lot of lag in how these things are done. And if you bring a solution that would give them a low barrier of entry for digitization and give them tools to digitize to a degree where they are experiencing opportunity inclusion into markets that have been digitized, like, for example, gold trade. I mean, that is pretty digitized. There's various different ways of fractional ownership, of trading, of all these different tools. If you give them the ability to, on top of that, enjoy things like standard commodities or legacy commodities, enjoy, like, for example, trade financing, various forms of even things that actually traditional commodities don't enjoy, like DeFi financing, which is a thing that we can do with blockchain these days, right? If you offer them things like traceability, immutable traceability, which is actually something that traditional commodity markets don't have as much of and are actually facing a problem with, because in legacy commodity markets, you still have such things as ghost lots, which is basically, and this is something that a friend of mine who worked in the commodity market, in the commodity trade for over a decade, and I think he was like he was a director of commodity trading in Asia for like one of the biggest firms. It wasn't Merrill Lynch. It was another one of our informal advisors. It was with Merrill Lynch, but he was with Morgan Stanley or something, just one of the big ones, right? He said that this would happen. They would have a contract for a commodity, because what you do is you create a futures contract for a commodity, and then that's what you trade. You don't actually, bring gold into the stock market. You don't bring coal into the stock market. And they would have this contract that would be assigned to a lot or to a batch of commodity. And when this contract matures in the traditional commodity market, you're supposed to either transfer the contract or you're supposed to take custody of the commodity lot, which is also a large network of bonded warehouses and custody warehouses that handle this. So this is still, it's already engineered. What happens is sometimes the contract says that there's like a ton of iron, but there isn't. It's a ghost lot. The same with other commodities. This actually happens fairly often, and this is due to the lack of digitization, even in the legacy, even in the big boy commodity markets. And so that basically brings me back to what we have. What we offer is, Sam calls it a one-stop shop. What I like to call it is an aggregate solution that essentially what it creates is a leapfrogging opportunity for these underserved commodity markets in a way where they don't have to upgrade their infrastructure and spend like $1 billion upgrading infrastructure, right? They don't have to spend $1 million to onboard themselves onto the platform. It's pay as you go. And this tool set really gives them the opportunity. Now, we're not like making everybody equal here. This is not a communist utopia, but we are creating opportunity for them to succeed that wasn't there before because of kind of stupid reasons, right? So once you take away those reasons, you give them the same ability. You basically empower these people and you give them the opportunity to succeed. And then it's up to them if they actually want to take the opportunity. And many do. And this is why we got such a great response from Sri Lanka. That's why we have this great cooperation from the tea industry. We signed an MOU with the Tea Factory Owners Association of Sri Lanka last December, which essentially makes up the bulk of the tea industry. And this tea industry is really kind of almost jumping at the bit, looking to onboard into the platform because they understand their problems, they see the potential, they have the will and the drive, and now here's the tool. Here are the tools for you to do that. So it's just really exciting. It's very exciting to be able to build something like this.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity there with the tea industry. And like you said, expanding over to other industries in the area would be quite an easy task once you got one up and running. But I've got a couple of questions out of all that. So first off, how are you going to onboard all of these businesses onto the platform? I'm sure there's a massive process for this. And then also, along with those ghost lots, how do you guys guarantee the verified assets are there? And how does the traceability side of things work for your platform?
What Dan and I coined this the middle out approach. And there's obviously a few different ways you can bootstrap customer and user activity on a platform. You can go one by one, or you could go straight to the government and say, please mandate this. But what we've found is the right happy medium is what we call the middle out approach. And a lot of that is quite reliant on speaking with the leading institutions or leading associations that represent these types of stakeholders. So like Dan mentioned, we've been super fortunate working with the Tea Factory Owners Association out of Sri Lanka. And they represent over 500 factories, which is basically all of the factories that produce tea in Sri Lanka. And by working with them, we were able to actually conduct different pilots. We have access to, over 500 different factories to actually be able to share the work that we're doing and sort of onboard them bit by bit onto the platform. And we found that to be a super, super effective approach. And in saying that, we're not discounting, the bottom up or the top down approach either. We spend a fair bit of time actually speaking to regulators, so the Sri Lankan Tea Board, Tea Research Institute. We've also met up with the different ministers as well who represent these industries in Sri Lanka. So we had some really good chats with both the state and the Honourable Minister of Plantation Industries in Sri Lanka on a few different occasions. And also the State Minister of Technology as well. So we're keeping them very informed and sort of collaborating with them. And we're doing the same as well at the grassroots level, working individually with different tea factories and trying to understand the nuance. So it's a really complex, but we're trying to take a very simple approach here in terms of middle out, find the important associations that represent these stakeholders. And that's the one side of the equation, which is the selling and the supply side. We're doing the exact same thing as well on the opposite end. So we're speaking to different import associations, buyer associations as well. So that's basically our way to get traction and get buy-in as well. But one of the other things that I think, which is going to be super crucial, is the ability to create and formalize a governance ecosystem. So eventually, we're going to have to actually build up a formal governance ecosystem around tea, where we bring together all of the different stakeholders, whether that's a regulator, an association, maybe some select producers and buyers, financing players, logistic players, and just sit them down in a room and just get some buy-in around what standardization we want to create and what that looks like in the future. Like what data do we want to capture? Like you mentioned around traceability, what are the standards that we use to grade different teas? And we've put in a catalyst proposal to actually tackle some of these things. It's a really big problem where you have to start at the local level and then to build it up at the global level as well. And I think through that, we'll get a lot more traction and buy-in. It'll be much easier to onboard different commodity, so producers and buyers. But that's really been our approach, middle out.
And my second question there was around the traceability and the verification of the commodities. How do you guys handle that?
I mean, just like with everything, right? It's all about reporting. And it's about a reporting structure that is, that is streamlined enough not to be a pain in the ass, because people don't like dealing with stuff that's cumbersome. But it still has to gather enough data for you to be able to, to properly log this, to properly log the data, to properly bring the data on chain. So let's start with how the data is gathered. So right now, the data is actually gathered by the factory themselves and by the farmer themselves, but mostly by the factory. This is for their own accounting reasons, right? So this is not to create contracts. This is to account for what they have for their stock, right? And it's very important for them to keep good accounting, because if they have a ghost lot, they can't sell it. Right. So it has to be clean data. So they're incentivized to keep clean data, because in the end of the day, they don't, they only lose if, say they have a ton of tea, but the amount of tea that they actually bring to the buyer is 900 kilos. They're going to say, well, what about the extra 100 kilos? You said it, we had it. It's like, oh, what the hell? That's just, So there's high incentive to make sure the data is clean. So we integrate and utilize this particular data, and we work with the factory, work with the accounting structure that's already in place right now to then gather the data and digitize the data. And in fact, Palmyra is going to have an interface for them to utilize that is very similar to what they use right now to actually catalog and log the data. Okay, so yeah, you have all this data logged. What do you do? How do you make sure that it is clean? Well, before it goes on chain, well, that is done through an extensive Oracle network. The Oracle network that was engineered by our tokenomics partners. And we're actually going to be utilizing this Oracle network, and this is a very unique Oracle network, because it validates on-off-chain data, but also what it does, unlike many other Oracle networks, is that it incentivizes clean data and penalizes bad data, which makes network integrity that much better, or the information integrity that much better, because the validator, there are consequences for doing bad stuff, basically. And that's a big thing. And this is also an incentive to make sure that that the data is clean. And so, yeah, there's different steps. There's different steps to make sure that the data, that the traceability data is gathered correctly and then validated correctly before it goes on chain. So yeah, essentially that's how it's going to work. Later down the line, we're going to have other data gathering technologies that are going to be integrated with Palmyra. For example, we're going to have geoposition data gathering. We're going to have crop report gathering. We're going to have IoT devices that are going to be reporting data for us for traceability. But it all starts with the current system, because the current system does have quite a bit of data that is not currently available to the buyer and to the industry in the middle of the trade. And it is very valuable. And the reason why it's not available is because it's sitting on somebody's 20-year-old computer somewhere in an office somewhere. So it's just, again, leapfrogging through digitization. You're not telling how to reinvent the wheel. You're not explaining to them alien technology. You just basically say, do this as the way you were doing it before. Just make sure you do your job really good, and we're going to take care of the data, and we're going to make it so that it's usable in other places. That's it.
That's brilliant. I love that Oracle idea. And this really does sound like a brilliant use case for blockchain and digitally transforming their old ways of doing business and taking it all on blockchain. So it's absolutely brilliant. Now, I'd like to understand how the other end of the users interact with the platform. So we've got the businesses uploading the data and using it to sell their commodities. How do other businesses, are they going to interact with the platform to actually buy the commodities? Are they just going to do it online through the interface? How's that scenario going to look?
Yeah, it's exactly right. We're keeping it very simple. And one of the, I guess, principles that we have within the company and within Palmyra, our project is, make it a seamless experience and make it so simple that they don't even realize that blockchain is being used. That's really the principle behind what we're building. And we had the pleasure of working with Nicholas, our UX designer, a number of months ago when we first put this idea down and brought it to life. And we just kept telling him, make it simple, make it simple, make it simple. And he was, and so he's so bought into the idea. And if you've had the time to actually see our UX, and because we're launching soon as well, you'll be able to play around with the website. It's simple. It's not like a connect wallet here, sign this transaction there. It's just, if someone wants to buy tea and they want to get access to traceability information, they want to see that all the certifications are embedded from the government, from different associations, they can do that. And they should be able to choose which way they want to transact and conduct commerce. If they want to choose a certain delivery system, they should be able to do that. If they want to add insurance, they should be able to do that. If they want to, borrow money along the way, they should be able to do that. And if they want to pay in fiat, they should be able to do that as well. So it's a seamless experience we're looking to build. We understand that there are different types of businesses and the way that they want to actually conduct commerce, and we just will make it fit in for them. So we're trying to just unclutter and make it as simple as possible, basically.
Okay, now this leads to my next question. And is this this side of the platform, is it mainly for B2B, or will it be B2C as well, or small business in that respect? I asked because my partner has had a tea company, and one of her challenges was actually sourcing tea from businesses like this. And the amount of investment that we had to put in orders was huge. It was astronomical, and for a startup business, like, to get that kind of funding was a little hard. So in regards to this platform, would a small business operator or even a consumer be able to buy portions of the tea or commodities that go through the platform?
Absolutely. In fact, we are currently speaking to and will be onboarding several small businesses onto the platform for the MVP. That's exactly what it's meant for. It's meant for, again, creating opportunity and inclusion for the buyer as well, because now you can source this real product. You don't have to, trust me, bro, that it's Ceylon. You can see that it's Ceylon. You can prove that it's Ceylon. And to answer your question, it's a B2B2C platform. And so what that means is the interaction between the buyer and the seller is B2B. However, the data that is being gathered and put and sent and basically begotten by the buyer when they purchase the product can then be carried on to their customer. And so this is actually a big thing, as I'm sure you know, dealing from the buyer side. To be able to provide this robust catalog of information showing conclusively that this is the real deal. This is where it was gotten from. This is how it made it from the leaf and from the tea plant to your cup. And here it is. And here it is in an immutable way. How is it immutable? Well, then that's when you explain, if you want to, how it's immutable. But you seldom get to that. You just, because if you actually think about it, a lot of certification and a lot of traceability today is kind of, the consumer just kind of goes by the brand, and they say, if Pepsi says that they got their, cola beans from whatever, I don't know where cola beans grow, but wherever cola beans grow, the mountains of Nicaragua, or that's coffee beans. But anyway, they got it from there. You're going to say, okay. You're not going to go, it's like, no, you're lying. Let me see some, let me see receipts. But if, Dan's Cola says that they got their beans from the same place, they're like, I don't know Dan's Cola. Okay, you have receipts? And it's like, yeah, we do. Here. And this is, and just the level of information, just the robustness of information and the clarity of information is going to be enough for a lot of people to say, oh, okay, yeah, you got your stuff together. Yeah, this is the good stuff. This is the right stuff. And this is what we're banking on. This is what we think is going to bring a lot of value to the buyer. And again, as you know that this will, because you know that you've dealt with this kind of thing when you were starting the tea business with your colleague.
Yeah, I love that. To be able to show the consumer verifiable proof that it is organic, it's sourced from a reputable location as well. Because half the time you look at these brands, you just look and go, it's probably just marketing, right? They just paid someone to spin up some copy, write the text in, take some stock images, and there you go. You've got an eco-friendly organic tea brand off the bat. But to have this verified and have the traceability behind it is absolutely awesome. And users can actually then probably work out where their cup of tea is coming from and who has benefited from it. So I absolutely love that play there.
And the interesting thing, just to add as well, like there's been quite a lot of research around this. Customers are willing to pay more, are willing to pay a premium when they actually understand that this data exists and it's quite transparent as well. So that's a really key piece that the people that we're working with are quite excited about. And just to touch on another thing as well, I just want to just emphasize, like Dan and I built this business with the sole objective of, yes, it's commercial, but how do we empower people? How do we do opportunity inclusion the way that Cardano wanted to from the start? And it just makes no sense to just leave these smaller businesses out. Like there are different types of tea producers all around the world, different types of commodity producers who produce in large amounts, but also small amounts. Maybe they're a bit more specialist producers and they can only afford to produce a small amount of volume each year. It just makes no sense to be able to, cut them out of access to a platform like this. And same goes for buyers on the other end. And maybe there are certain levels of aggregation that need to take place. But the whole point is we want to make it easy to access. It's opportunity inclusion is a key piece here, and size, shouldn't make too much of a difference.
The concept was built around serving underserved MSMEs in emerging economies. We say this all the time. We didn't say, you know what, let's build this thing and sell it to Lipton or something and be done with it. We built the platform and building the platform with MSMEs in mind, micro, small, and mid-sized enterprises in mind from both ends, from the producer side and from the buyer side, because the bulk of these producers and these buyers are MSMEs. And so if you kind of discount them and if you just try to go for the big boys, you're underserving yourself and the market. That's not where innovation happens. Innovation happens when you create this inclusion for these types of people, and let the market decide if it's the right thing, and it is the right thing. It's been shown time and time again. If you create something that is viable for MSMEs, it'll blow up. And this actually, I don't know if you wanted to, if you had this on your agenda to talk about, but kind of circling back to the blockchain side of things, right? And the blockchain culture, the community that we're all a part of. Now, DeFi, right? DeFi, great tool, great concept. On a macro scale, so far, not very well executed. Not because the tech is bad, not because that the people that have put out DeFi platforms did a bad job, but because what really happens with a lot of DeFi, and you know this, if we're being honest, DeFi liquidity just sloshes back and forth between these different platforms. There's not a lot of mainstream money that comes into these because they're just, so wait a second. So I go on here and I leverage my crypto to buy more crypto and then sell crypto to buy more crypto, and then I'll buy a monkey picture with that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Let's be honest here. That's kind of what the current DeFi experience is. And what did we build it for? Did we build it to trade monkey pictures and 9 shiny coins? Maybe, but not really. We were talking about this, empowering and banking the unbanked. As much as I always say that I really kind of don't like that terminology, banking the unbanked. We're not looking to be the bank. We're looking to unbanking the unbanked and giving them opportunity that doesn't require a bank, basically financial inclusion. And so thinking about this, we decided that part of our platform is a DeFi platform, but what we are building is a real world use case for this DeFi platform, like some actually have done, like for example in the Ergo ecosystem and in the Cardano ecosystem, microloans to small businesses in Africa, various other tools like this. This is what this is about. This is what it should be about. Personally, that's what I think, and this is what Sam thinks. This is what it should be about. We can have fun with it. We can work with it, within the crypto culture. But we have to get out of our silo. We have to push this out into the mainstream, or else it's going to die. And so, what we are building is a way for these producers, say in Sri Lanka, that are currently they have to borrow money. They constantly have to borrow money. And a lot of times what happens is in these kind of economies, money is really expensive to borrow. For example, in Sri Lanka, they pay a premium of about 30% on borrowing money. This is an accredited business with established track record, with stock that can be verifiable and collateralized, still has to borrow at 30%. Now, what if we utilize our DeFi technology? What if we create an opportunity for them to borrow money even at, half that or 3/4 that? You don't think they're going to jump on this? Of course they are. And when it's inside the same platform, of course they're going to say, "Oh, wait a second, I can borrow this money at what, like 30% less here?" Okay. On the lender side, on the liquidity provider side, it's still going to be a great ROI. But instead of this like fantasy ROIs that are circling around the DeFi space right now, and especially in the bull markets, 200%. It's like, yeah, we build this. We started this industry to get away from the money printers, and that's what we're doing, is printing more like internet funny money. Instead of that, you actually can use your liquidity to invest and empower a business with that can show you their track record. They can show you that they have this stock. They can show you that they can be verified because it's verified by the blockchain. It's on the ledger, and it creates this opportunity for you to lend them money. Creates an opportunity for them to be able to do business for much less. Why would they not take this opportunity? Of course they would.
Really wish this was around 5 years ago when we're going through our tea business and building things up. It would have made things a lot easier and a lot more interesting as well. But I absolutely love what you guys are building and the vision and everything else around it. How far along are you guys with the roadmap? You mentioned MVP, so it sounds very soon. What can we expect?
Yeah, I might touch on that. So we've onboarded a number of developers, front end, back end devs who've been phenomenal, really building out each of these key components. And our MVP launch is in the next couple months. So we'll have a few announcements coming up, and we're onboarding what we call the Palmyra pioneers. This is the first cohort of producers and buyers utilizing our platform. So that's really just a key priority for us right now, just getting them ready, and we're already onboarding them. So we've got some commitments from different parties, and they're just waiting. It's really exciting. It's like, wait, just wait around. Like, we're almost there. Yeah, it's really exciting. We're sort of starting different traceability pilots as well. So it's all coming together in terms of the actual real launch. But in terms of what comes afterwards, our strategy is three-pronged. So the first is basically, can we go like multi-region? The second is multi-commodities, and the third is multi-services. And like you said, Pete, at the start, once you get one of them right, it becomes much easier. So in terms of multi-regions, we're already getting quite a lot of interest from different tea-producing countries like Myanmar, Kenya, India, and we're telling them just hold on, let us show you that Sri Lanka works, that there's a proper business case here, and then we'll come launch. So that's coming up sooner than everyone probably thinks. And then the second piece is multi-commodities, and we're being very specific about which markets we're entering, and most of them have different types of commodities that they export. So as Dan mentioned, Sri Lanka has tea, but they also have coconut, they've got spices, they've got rubber as well. So, utilizing the network and the business development that we're actually doing on the ground should enable us to sort of join the dots and connect the dots a bit better, in each of these markets. And the last piece is multi-services. How do we plug in trade finance using DeFi? How do we, introduce financial instruments? Can we get the right licenses to be able to do this? So there's heaps of opportunities. And, just the spot market alone in export value is like hundreds of billions of dollars a year. If you add in financial instruments, you multiply that by a few. And we're talking like a huge market opportunity. So step by step, the first is the MVP launch. As we mentioned before, there's been tokenomics being built out. So we're going to launch first, and then we're going to launch token. And the token's going to be, it's quite a unique and sort of novel approach where the token economy works hand in hand with the actual business itself and the platform itself. And it'll help scale the platform. It'll help sort of in terms of the Oracle piece that Dan mentioned. And there'll be a huge decentralized business development model that we're building out, which will enable Cardano, Palmyra token holders to earn income from effectively onboarding different types of businesses onto the platform as well. So it's all staged in a way that we think makes the most amount of sense. But number one priority is making sure the Sri Lanka launch is a success.
Brilliant. Now, you also mentioned a little bit earlier, you've got a Catalyst proposal. So how are you guys firstly funding all this development? It's a fairly large team that needs to put this together. And then can you talk a little bit about your Catalyst proposal that's coming up?
Sure. So we raised some initial angel funds last year. We're a company born in the bear market. So we've got a very strict sort of policy around how we spend funds. Like we have been like very, very strict around how we spend money, and we've done a lot with a very small amount that we've raised. And also bootstrapping with Dan and I personally putting a lot of our own funds into the project as well. So that's how we've got to where we are today. We're in the process of raising funds as well through a few different avenues, whether that's through an upcoming IDO, We're also looking into an ISPO and also speaking to different types of accredited investors and strategic investors, whether they're in the commodity space or in the venture space as well. So there's a few interesting sort of milestones coming up in terms of enabling us to continue building and expanding. So that's all sort of going ahead regardless of catalyst. But we, as someone that's been working and sort of helping out in the Catalyst scene for a couple of years now, we're big advocates of Catalyst and the opportunity that, getting funding from the Treasury and getting funding from the community allows projects to build and to open source different types of tools. And we're going to put in a few different proposals, one of which is, I mentioned we're building a governance ecosystem for the global specialty tea sector, which is a multi-billion-dollar market. And we're looking to basically create a working group with all the different key stakeholders, run different types of workshops, and create integration plans into making this scalable through Palmyra. So we already have Palmyra working at this point. And it's just creating an open source framework around onboarding businesses. And we're going to open source a bunch of this stuff as well, because we know there'll be other real-fi projects built on Cardano that will want to utilize these different types of local to global playbooks as well in terms of onboarding businesses. So that'll be made open source. And then we've also got a traceability proposal that we're looking to submit, where we've actually built we're in the process of building out the traceability protocol on the Ergo side, but we think we should build something similar on the Cardano side and make it interact with different tools like Rosenbridge, where you'll be able to wrap different assets. And commodity traceability is just one application of traceability. There might be different businesses on Cardano that want to utilize traceability, whether it's in a gamified way or if it's for marketing, if it's for, things like education or systems information. So we should make that open source, and we're big proponents of that, and we're looking to do that. And the last one that we've spent, over 6 to 9 months really thinking about is this piece around how do we give stake pool operators a new form of revenue, right? So stake pool operators right now, they earn, SPO rewards, and they also, every now and then occasionally get access to ISPO allocations. And that's really the only way that you're able to sustain your business. But there's a lot of decentralized infrastructure on its way, and Bridges is one of which that we've been spending a lot of time with the Rosenbridge team, and they're looking to build the most decentralized bridge infrastructure in the world. And what that means is a 2-layer validation sort of framework, in which the first layer will be made up of lots of different, they call watches, which will be looking for transactions. And, stake pool operators and the role SPOs play is incredibly important for the security of Cardano. And we think that SPOs can be the perfect candidate to use this tooling, run this infrastructure, and provide security for collaboration between Cardano and other ecosystems. So we're going to build a tool set, and the Rosen team is going to build a tool set to actually be able to enable SPOs to just run this infrastructure and provide security and to get rewards for it. So and it doesn't stop there. It's an open sort of source tool. Different decentralized infrastructure will be able to utilize it as well. So it doesn't just stop with Bridges, and we're just opening the scope of what SPOs can do in general, and we're just super excited about that. Like, we have lots of friends who are small stake pool operators who are really struggling right now. Why not empower them, give them new ways to make money, earn rewards on top of what they're already doing, which is providing security for Cardano. So it's super scalable. It's anyone can really get involved. We're really proud of the proposal we're putting in for that, and we've spent a number of months really thinking about it, and finally we're able to share it with the community.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll make sure I grab all of those links to the proposals, and I'll put them in the show notes, so if anyone's interested, they can find out a little bit more. But finally, where can people find out more about what you guys are up to, or where can they join the community if you have one? Where's the best places to go?
Sure. Website, Zengate.global. Really easy. Just spell it the way it sounds. Right. You're going to have information about Palmyra on there, other projects that are going to be coming up after Palmyra, because Palmyra is only the beginning of the Zengate ecosystem. So there's a bigger ecosystem that we're going to be building out beyond Palmyra with products that are complementary to Palmyra. You can find out about those. We'll also have a YouTube channel where we post regular videos. We have a great UI UX walkthrough video on there. We have several updates about the state of the project, explaining different parts of the project. There are videos of me in Sri Lanka and and different newscasts that I was part of when we signed these MOUs, and we worked with the producers over there. So that's a great place for information. We have a Discord. It's again, I'm sure you can put a link in the comments. Twitter, follow the Zengate profile, not mine. I sometimes tweet uncomfortable things. Zengate profile is that's where you get all the information about all the stuff that we're doing. So follow us on Twitter, and also great shows like yours is a good place to get information. And thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure, and obviously we know each other, and we both have been in the ecosystem for a while, and I really appreciate the opportunity to finally be able to come on to your podcast and to be able to talk about this thing, or to be able to talk about something that I'm building or we're building with Zengate, and not come and talk about so tell me all about input output and your 7 years there. It's like, okay, well, so thank you so much.
It's a separate interview.
We'll follow up with all the goss around that one. But guys, thank you so much for teaching me more about Palmyra and everything that you guys are doing at Zengate as well. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.